25. All right, Rob Browne, Brendan Martin here. Got a great lineup. Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia. Going to be batting the leadoff position. Wil Gunter checks in from Columbia, talking South Carolina, what's going on over there. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, will be on with us. And we're going to be talking a lot about what Roman Harper said. Some great stuff last night at the Touchdown Club. But in the meantime, get your phone out, take a picture of your cell phone of this QR code because we're broadcasting live on Twitter, X, Facebook, YouTube, 7 channels. Catch us live or catch us later. So we're going to get into this discussion about, hey, Georgia, the magazines are coming out, Jordan Davis Hill. You're putting out a lot of great content. Talking to you before the show. 4 national championships for the Georgia Athletic Department. So they got to be happy about that. It all starts with football. So, you were at the spring meetings in Destin. There was some takeaways from that we've talked about. But the new NIL, I think this is a pause because there are going to be so many lawsuits on there. Something crazy is going to happen. But first off, thank you for joining us this morning. And what's going on with Georgia recruiting night right now? Is it kind of slow because everybody's having to wait on what they can offer?
No, they've been pretty steady this summer. The last few weeks, it seemed like about a recruit or two commit in a week. They just picked up Caden Harris, a cornerback from Tennessee that had been committed to Vanderbilt. But they've been moving right along, and I think that Georgia sort of had a plan in place for post-house settlement life and what they want to pay guys and what they want NIL to look like. So they've been chugging right along, and this has been the busy season. We cover a ton of recruiting over at Dogs 24/7, so there's always been something to talk about.
Well, never a shortage of it. And going into this season, the narrative, who's the best team in the SEC? Don't have any divisions anymore. But what are you hearing about summer workouts with Georgia right now? Who all's there on campus? And we don't worry about people being academically ineligible waiting on the clearinghouse anymore. So, have you heard of anybody that's not there yet from that top 3 class?
No, not yet. I know they've got several guys in that summer enrollees. One of the guys that I have heard a little bit about, Thomas Blackshear. And Georgia signed 5 high school receivers this offseason, or in that 2025 class. And Blackshear is the last one to make it to campus, but it seems like he's doing good. And the other guy I've heard about in workouts at this point is Elo Mendozi, the guy they got from Army, an outside linebacker, a guy that I think is going to play a whole lot of football for Georgia. Played great at Army, but on one side you got to consider what he's getting ready to face, moving up in the level of competition. On the other side, I don't think you got to worry about an Army player's work ethic. I think he sort of knows what he's signing up for as far as that goes. So good signs early on for a guy that I think is going to be Georgia's starting outside linebacker, and a guy they're counting on to set the edge and to make a lot of plays on this defense this year.
Well, you brought in a running back, McCarthy from Illinois.
Josh McCray from we got to shout out Enterprise, Alabama.
Exactly. Home of the boll weevils. Down there in the wiregrass. But you can't keep them all. And these kids, like, if you're a Florida fan, you're shaking your head all the time looking on these rosters. And, how did Jeremiah Smith get out of Fort Lauderdale? But Nate Frazier's back too. Georgia running back room, traditionally one of the best in the country. By the way, Nick Chubb trying to get back into the NFL, the pride of Cedartown. That, or he goes back and he runs as mayor. You think he'd win?
I think it'd be a landslide. I don't think it'd be even close.
I think it would be about 98%. The only people that wouldn't vote for him might be some, I don't know, fans of other schools or something.
Probably Tennessee. That's Northwest Georgia. It's not too far from the line, so you might have some Tennessee fans.
Yeah, and all right. So, but look, the running back room, but the offensive line is going to be the key. We keep hearing about offensive linemen coming in the portal, getting all the reps with the ones, and a lot of them they leave. You need to be there at least 2 years to really build a cohesive offensive line unit. So Georgia, that culture works. So running game should be good, which helps Gunter Stockton early on, correct?
I mean, that, along with how Gunter plays, I want to see what this run game looks like because, there were a lot of parts of this offense that were disappointing last season, but that run game was right up there with it. I mean, they finished 15th in the SEC in rushing yards per game. I mean, when have you ever heard of Georgia not being able to run the football? And, they went very pass heavy with Carson last season and trying to make the most of that. But, the combination of the running backs and having several of them hurt, and then an offensive line that really was a letdown across the board. I think that that run game never got where they wanted it, and so they have a big test of replacing four starters on that line. Like you mentioned, they've done a good job. Nate Frazier's back; he was the leading rusher last season. They go get Josh McCray from Illinois. I really like that addition because I think he's kind of more that power back, where Nate Frazier's a little bit more speed. And to see those two combine, put those two together, I really like that. And then Rob, we talk about it on this show quite a bit that Georgia's depth chart at running back is always absurd. I was looking at it yesterday. I think they got 7 running backs on scholarship right now. Just super deep. Cash Jones, the third down back from last year, he'll be back. Roderick Robinson's trying to come back from injury. Bo Walker, the freshman from Cedar Grove, he's done a really good job back in the spring, and I think he's going to play quite a bit. I can keep going. Chauncey Bowen, Dwight Phillips Jr., they have a lot of options. And I think they're determined to run the football better, and I think they have to if they're going to live up to the high expectations this season.
Well, and you talked about these guys like Bo Walker, and just back in 2021, I remember you had 13 running backs in the running back room, but 7 right now on scholarship. That's a position where you can come in and play right away. Talk about the offensive line. When you think about the big red wall, think about guys like Broderick Jones and Amarius Mims. Those guys, 5 stars coming out of high school. What was Broderick at? Alithia Springs? Yeah, right there on I-20 by Six Flags. I mean, and then you got Amarius from Blakely County down in Americus, Georgia. So in state, about 250 D1 players a year coming out of Georgia. How strong is this year's high school recruiting class? Because Georgia still leans heavily on high school. And then I want to ask you some things I've been hearing about high school recruiting nationally, how much it's changed.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with in-state, I think Georgia is very smart about recognizing when the in-state class is very strong and when it's not, taking advantage elsewhere. I mean, I think it's a situation where this is a very good class in the state of Georgia in 2026, and you go look at what Georgia has already accumulated from the class to this point. There's been a lot of in-state guys that they've already got committed, and several guys still on the board that they're chasing. I mean, one right down the road, Kamari Brooks from North Oconee. I mean, he's a guy that Georgia really, really wants in a fight with Alabama. And yeah, I mean, I think when you look at recruiting nationally, I am interested to watch these next few years just to see. There's all the arguments about how much eligibility kids are going to have. There's been a push for 5 years instead of the 4 that we've had for so long. Does that affect how recruiting looks and what that looks like in addition to the transfer portal? But I think Georgia's feeling pretty good. I give Kirby a lot of credit. When everything changes, there never seems to be any sense of, well, we got to totally change our approach. I mean, there will be tweaks, and I think all good coaches make changes along the way, but I think Kirby knows at this point the way they go about finding talent, scouting talent, and recruiting talent is proven, and they're going to stick with it. And it's led to some pretty good results to this point.
No, it has. And so you keep hearing about, let's say on a typical year, 134 Division I football programs. If they all sign about 25 kids, that's around 3,400 plus players. I'm curious how many high school kids now are signing versus people just going into the portal and getting retreads and buying guys, pre-owned automobiles, pre-owned players. They've been in another school. Maybe 1%, 34, 35, 5 stars a year in the country, 350 to 400 4-stars. The rest of them are 3s and 2s, and then you got the non-rated guys. And that isn't because they're not good, probably because nobody evaluated them. Georgia, 4th most talent-rich state in America. if Georgia doesn't get them, it used to be half the time Clemson or Auburn did. How hard is it with so many transients coming in to the Atlanta area? Why has Georgia struggled? It's hard to believe at Buford, that power program. They're the University of Georgia. You would think the kids would walk to Georgia for an opportunity.
I think the example with Buford, and they've actually done a pretty good job. They got KJ Bolden in the
Yeah.
last class, and
Yeah.
or two classes ago, and they got Graham Houston committed, who's an offensive lineman in the 2026 cycle. I think a big part of it, when you think about Buford, you think about Gwinnett County, where that is. Gwinnett County is a county now in the state of Georgia. I mean, it's in the last 10, 15 years, it's been one of the fastest growing in the state.
Yeah.
And that means you got a lot of people moving in. You
That's
don't
right.
have a ton of kids that grew up, 4 years old watching Georgia play. I mean, they were from all over the country. So
Yeah.
I think that's the piece with Buford. And the thing is too, I think, I saw some of this when I covered Auburn, and there would be a lot of good talent in East Alabama. Sometimes you just get kids who want to go off and go do something else.
Yeah.
Leave home and do that. So no, you're not going to hit on everybody. I tell the joke all the time. My dad's a diehard Georgia fan, and especially when I covered Auburn, every week, game week when Georgia's getting ready to play Auburn, he would text me and say, "There are 25 kids on this Auburn roster from Georgia."
Yeah.
Just furious. And I
Yes.
would be like, "Dad, Georgia can't sign everybody."
Yeah.
And along the way, there are guys that weren't on Georgia's board or were lower on their board than guys they got. So it's one of those things you're not going to hit on every dart throw in the state of Georgia, in a state with as much talent as Georgia. But I mean, to Kirby's credit, he's kept the majority of the guys they wanted in state. And I think without that in-state talent, you're not looking at 2 national championships while Kirby's been here.
Yeah. I mean, 250 players in the state, D1 a year. Georgia might sign 11, 12. And if it's a great player and Georgia wants him and it's an in-state kid, it's almost impossible to get him out of the state. So that being said, let's talk now about the defensive line. It was funny last night. Roman Harper was talking at the Touchdown Club about all the talent Georgia has. And he said, the guy at Philadelphia. And I said, yeah, Jalen Carter. But people forget just a couple of years ago, the number one pick in the draft, because I used to go over to Thomaston, Georgia, Ups and Lee, Ups and Robert E. Lee High School. They combined it right there on the Flint River, man. Travion Walker, number one pick. People just, like 6'5", 270. That program is so deep at Georgia. But defensive line wise, you got any Nate Websters or Eddie Meek Cleaver Weavers on that roster? Ask your dad about those guys.
I've heard about Meek Cleaver Weaver, I can promise you.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I think is a strength of this team, I think they've got some really talented defensive linemen. I'd say Christian Miller is the guy that's got a chance to really break out. But I think they're pretty deep. And I think about in 2022 when they won that second national championship, that was the first year I was back on the beat. And they were so deep at defensive line that in that Peach Bowl against Ohio State, they were doing such a good job rotating guys in and getting a guy like Michael Williams, who was a freshman on that team. I don't know that he started that game, but he played quite a bit to keep those guys fresh and to keep those guys going. But the names I would tell people to watch out for, Christian Miller, I think, has a chance to play his way into a first-round pick in 2026. Jordan Hall's kind of the guy that we all need to see break out. I think he's got a chance to be the starting nose tackle, a former 5-star from Jacksonville who, dealt with injury last year and wasn't able to play very much with the same stress fracture to both legs. And he fought his way through that. And the other guys I'd say, Xavier McLeod, a guy they got last season from South Carolina. I think he's going to play a lot. And then I would be remiss not to bring up Elijah Griffin, 5-star out of Savannah Christian. This guy is going to be the next guy. He may not start this year. He may be a guy that only rotates in. There's going to be some games when they play like the Charlotte and when they play Austin P. I'm going to go ahead and predict you're going to see Elijah Griffin get in the game and do something that's just like, man, this is a different kind of cat.
Yeah, he really is. Jordan, man, I know we put it on me, late start here this morning. Appreciate you patience, staying with us, and look forward to you being on next week again. Let people know how they can follow you. Again, people, it's a nonstop Georgia coverage, and they got a deep depth chart, don't you? Your front seven on that roster down there at 24/7 Sports covering Georgia, very strong. But how do they follow you? And again, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it, Rob. Dogs247.com. If you're a Georgia fan, 50% off sale right now. Get on it because you're covered through football, basketball, and baseball season next year. So it's a good time to hop on board. On Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at Dogs247. Tell people to check out our YouTube, Dogs247, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central Time today. Me, Benjamin Wolk, and Kip Adams are going to do a roster draft. We're going to pick players from this Georgia team and have people vote on it and see who they think had the best team. So it's a fun time of year, and I hope people will join us over on Dogs 24/7.
Well, it's always nonstop coverage, man. Love it. And media days, less than 4 weeks away. It's just get your credentials in now. Take care,
It'll
man.
be all right. See you, Rob.
No. I'm just saying it'll be here, and that's when football season kind of starts, isn't it?
Oh, for sure, sure.
All right. Thank you, man. Go Dogs. All right. Bringing in Wil Gunter right now from over in Columbia, 107.5. The Game does a great show. It's all over South Carolina early in the morning. Wil Gunter covering the Gamecocks. And, you know, every SEC fan base right now is licking their chops. They're ready for the season to start. And Wil Gunter, again, you cover so much in South Carolina. We had, yesterday talking with Will Vandervoort on Clemson in the ACC versus the SEC, the power struggle that's going on right now, and it's real. Okay, Will, yeah, let's see. I'm trying to bring Will in here. Hit camera, okay, but and here, there's okay, Brendan. Here comes Will.
That
There
wasn't me. That was he confused me for a second. I was like, "Do I look like that today? Did I? I thought I was wearing a different shirt."
Let me tell you something. I am at fault here. I'm the officer. I will always take responsibility. If I send something to Brendan that needs to be streamed during a show, it can cause traffic chaos. So it's all my fault. So I'm telling you, sorry about that. You did disappear for a second. And I'm like, Brendan's flying the plane, and I'm like going, okay, sorry. It's crazy.
Rob, no worries. I don't think the audience understands anything that we're talking about.
Well, yes, it's all minutia. Will, Gamecocks, man. I see Lindy's has third team All SEC quarterback. Here's they got Garrett Nussmeier 1, number 2 Arch Manning, number 3 Lenora Sellers. No DJ Lagway in there. Gunnar Stockton. I mean, these guys. They've all got. I think the most proven one, the 2 are Nussmeier and Lenora Sellers. There's no question about that. I heard always give credit where it's due. Chuck Oliver talking and Heath Klein yesterday. You're on that show. And I love that show. Talking about, Lenora Sellers played in 32 soccer games. He scored 25 goals. It's a pretty cool story there. Let's talk about it.
Well, yeah, obviously that comes, I believe from the, I've been talking about this all morning. Bruce Feldman article. Sorry. I just spent 3 hours talking about Bruce Feldman, and all of a sudden I come on your show and I completely blank on his name.
We do that to people.
That's what kind of morning it's going right now. Like my phone's going crazy. But anyway, this is interesting, I think. And you mentioned the soccer story and the backdrop of, there was a lot in that article, obviously, the mentioning of a 2-year, $8 million deal, basically to transfer to another school. It talked about, the article talked about obviously his opener against Old Dominion last year, and how that was a really, it was funny. It was it was bad around here. It was people were very concerned, and what he grew into in the Clemson game. And now you see him being projected, I think, as high as number 2 in some NFL mock drafts. He's on obviously the Heisman board. I mentioned this morning. He's going to get a signature opening game against nothing else. And I think this is important. You talk about like a Heisman, and you think about these things, and I can't remember the exact schedule for August 30th, and I can't remember what that other night game might be, but you're going to have Clemson and LSU, so a Garrett Nussmeier who's going to be in the Heisman discussion, but you'll be competing against some other games on that Saturday, August the 30th. But on Sunday, August the 31st, South Carolina, Virginia Tech is going to, if you love college football, you're going to tune in. You're going to, and if you've heard about Lenora Sellers, you're going to be, well, okay, I want to see what this guy's all about. It's the only college football game at 3:00 on Sunday. You got Miami, Notre Dame that night. So Lenora Sellers gets almost the country to himself. Everybody that's any Heisman voter who's heard about this guy, okay, I want to check this guy out. What does he really look like? It's going to be a really interesting opening weekend because of the buildup, especially when you get a Feldman article like that. You see mock drafts, you see some Heisman, all the buildup of the last 9 months. He gets a prime showcase spot at 3:00 on Sunday, August 31st, to showcase who he is.
Well, he's big, and y'all beat Clemson 17-14 last year. You are in Columbia, and then you get into the low country. By the way, I love low country stew at the quarter deck there in Hilton Head at that restaurant. That is good stuff. It ain't gumbo. It ain't jambalaya. It's low country stew. I absolutely love that culture in South Carolina. People, upstate, low country, a lot of Carolina fans. Passionate. You won 9 games last year. You won 11 games, 3 straight years under Steve Spurrier. Not many schools anywhere can say that. What are the expectations in your mind and your callers for this Carolina team this year?
It's growing. It's growing, and it's gonna continue to escalate through SEC media days. I think one thing that's happening that's causing expectations to rise is the realization now that this is probably the last year for Lenora Sellers. That this will probably be it. And is he a generational quarterback? Is he is he just a really good quarterback? We're gonna have to watch and see. But when you see the hype train building like this for him, and what you're seeing is basically South Carolina fans going, oh, it might have gone from, I think it went from, hey, if we win 9 games again and just miss on the playoffs, that's okay. We're building something. And I think because people are seeing the hype of Lenora Sellers and they're going, oh, wait, this is probably the last year we have this guy and he's going to go off to the NFL. This is kind of becoming the year. Does South Carolina break through and get into the college football playoff? If you don't, I don't want to say if you don't do it this year, when does it happen? That's unfair with college and transfers and everything these days. Yeah. But I do think people are looking at it now going, boy, this is maybe the closest. Now it's a 12-team playoff. We know how close we were last year. Clemson's at home, Alabama's at home, Oklahoma's at home. You got to go on the road to LSU. You got to go on the road to Mississippi. But you start looking around and you go, man, maybe this is the year we have to make it happen to prove that we can do this in our lifetime.
Well, you look at the schedule and, that term logo fever comes to mind. And the teams, not all of them are going to be as good as expected. Some of them that aren't expected to be good will rise above. And you look at South Carolina last year. Did those guys, you think, believe they could win those games? I think like the LSU game, they had it and they didn't. The Alabama game, boy, that one in Tuscaloosa, they felt like they let that one get away from them. What was the game last year where you looked at South Carolina and then remember what they did to Texas A&M? I know Casey Goodjohn's watching out in Cleveland County, Texas right now, and 44-20. I mean, that was your statement game last year, and then of course the win at Frank Howard Stadium.
I mean, yeah, there was a lot of instances. I was there in Tuscaloosa for the Alabama game, and it's funny. I had planned that one last summer, and South Carolina gets run absolutely out of the building, get home by by Mississippi the week before, doesn't score an offensive touchdown.
Yeah,
it's 27-3, and I'm talking to my 13-year-old son, and I'm like, well, hey, at least you're going to get to see a different stadium, a different environment, a different pregame, a different, everything that you see that's different than being at a home game. And I was like, that's cool. We probably are going to get smoked by Alabama, but you get to see a different stadium. That'll be cool. And Alabama fans are generally nice when they're up on you by 4 touchdowns. So you go to that game, and all of a sudden South Carolina's winning at halftime, and South Carolina's in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter with the ball, or in the fourth quarter with the ball and a chance to win. And it was watching that team grow. And if you think about it, Rob and Brendan, the next week they go to Oklahoma and they end that game within the first 5 minutes of the game. The defense takes over. It's 2 defensive touchdowns, and that thing's over. The ball game's over, and Oklahoma fans can't even sit in their seats before they're down 21-0. And then you take that, and all of a sudden, the Texas A&M is next. And the Texas A&M win was big, but let's be honest.
Wow.
If Texas A&M had lost to LSU at home, people wouldn't view that Texas A&M game the same, because Texas A&M wouldn't have been, I think, at that time 6-0 in conference, and really, all of a sudden we were talking about them as the conference, as getting to the conference championship game. So all of a sudden that added magnitude. But then you talk about the Missouri game, and Eli Drinkowitz in Missouri has been a bugaboo for South Carolina, and South Carolina was able to win that game. They do it with Lenore Sellers leading them down the field in the last seconds and running the little play to Rocket Sanders and him getting in. The legend of Lenore Sellers continued to grow. And then you go 2 weeks later, and that's what you're talking about. South Carolina goes down the field at the very end, and Lenore Sellers scrambles and runs it in. So there was an evolution there. I don't think it was just the Texas A&M game. I don't think it was just the Clemson game. There was an evolution from that Alabama game that they should have all the way to the Clemson game.
Recruiting football it's the lifeblood. High school, but also the portal. So you got to mesh them all together. How's that going for Carolina?
They're being picky. I think Shane Beamer has done a really good job of figuring out how to recruit, and meshing high school recruiting with the transfer portal. They are in on some top end talent. 5-star offensive lineman Darius Gray is a guy who will be on campus this weekend. They had the number 6 quarterback in the country, Landon Duckworth, who's going to decide between there and that's really an interesting decision for him, because South Carolina has a very impressive true freshman in Cutter Woods. They have a top 60 former recruit in Aaron Noland, who was one of the top quarterback transfers in the portal last year, who went to Ohio State and left after 1 year. Auburn's got Deuce McKnight coming in, who I loved. I actually thought he probably was the best quarterback last year. I loved his film. I know South Carolina was on him kind of early, and he ended up committing to Notre Dame and then flipped to Auburn. But it's interesting to see what Landon Duckworth is going to go, because wherever he goes, there's going to be competition.
Yeah. Well, the competition, that used to be what inspired these guys. All right, Will, I know you've got to go here in a couple of minutes. Tell people a story about South Carolina that they need to be following and how they can follow you. And thank you more than you know for coming on here and sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. We'll get this here. It just happened to be I got something at 10:30. I've got to get across town too. But with that being said, the storyline really is going to be the defense. We've talked a lot about that, replacing those defensive players, and we'll address this the next time I come on. Looking at those first 5 games and how it might allow the defense to develop really through the first half of the season, and hoping the offense can hold on. That's really the storyline that we're going to start to dig into as we head to SEC Media Days, is can you replace 5 guys off of that defense that were drafted in the first 5 rounds? That's going to be the big storyline.
That is huge. One last thing. You do a great show in the morning. Cole Kubelik, SEC Network, did one of the funniest stories last year. Remember the rooster lady that was dressed up like a gamecock that was on the sidelines up in the stands? Do you remember her?
I don't, and I'm very thankful I don't remember her. I do not feel bad about not knowing what you're talking about.
Cole loved her. Go back and find Carolina fan. But again, how do they follow you on Twitter and everything else?
Yeah, it's at Wil, Wil Gunter, Gunter. And as always, go to our website, go to our radio station website. It's the easy way. You can always download the app, of course, and listen to the app, 107.5 The Game. And you can go to the website and listen anywhere. We always appreciate it, and appreciate people got a text line that people can text into. And so even if you're in Alabama or Tennessee or Arkansas and you're listening somewhere, you can send us a text and join in. You don't have to call in. But we're in that time of years. We're less and less to talk about, but we're finding our way through.
Never a shortage on this show, man. Be careful. Have a great day.
I love it. Take care.
All right, you bet. All right, Yancy Porter going to check in with us in just a minute from the Rebel Yell Hotline. That's Monday nights, Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis and all over Super Talk, Mississippi. And Rodney Orr will be back with us in a few weeks. This is just a month where it's a crazy schedule. He has 11 grandchildren, and he's just a busy man. in the month of June, but he'll be back with us from Tighter Insider. But Brendan, it was interesting last night getting a chance to talk to Roman Harper about DJ Lagway, about this SEC race. I think that, and I was listening to your dad's show, the Buddy Martin show, on the way back from Memphis last night. You look at these, look at these rosters and these quarterbacks coming in to the league. People say, well, they don't have that much experience, or they don't have any experience. It's hard to have a really good quarterback stick around on the roster now. But it's also, look at Lane Kiffin. He's pretty good at this, about delaying naming a starter unless it's just painfully obvious. Jackson Dart was one such quarterback. So Yancy, Porter, how things down in Oxford right now, Lafayette County. How do you pronounce it down there, y'all locals?
Lafayette.
Okay. All right.
Lafayette.
Just like
Lafayette's the way you said if you're in the Bayou State.
That's right. Hey, now keep in mind, when I worked down in Columbus, Georgia for News 3 on your side, WRBL TV, I'd do a story in Buena Vista, Georgia. I called it Buena Vista, and they were going, Brown, you are in the South. It's Buena Vista. And some of the folks down there call it Buena Vista. There's an R on the end of there, I think. Can we get an R for $50? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Up in Branford, Missouri for my girls' national dance competition. So she's got her solo acts in about an hour. So excited to see her.
You wouldn't believe my friend Jeff Heimbach, his daughter. She's big into the volleyball circuit. So he spends most weekends watching 8 to 10 hours of volleyball. You know who he keeps sending pictures of right there? It's crazy, but remember Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin? He's got, I think, a relative, maybe it's a granddaughter or something in Memphis, but he keeps going, Brown, he's back, and it's like, it's pretty obvious, So you never know who you're gonna meet, man. But
no doubt.
Hey, you wait till they're older, like mine. I mean, not that they're old, but you'll long for those days of the practices and the sports. And
I know it.
But this is what do they call the salad days? No, these are hotty toddy times. Hey, Michael Brennan, great friend of mine in Memphis, every morning sends me hotty toddy. So you, Chuck Rounsford, Gordon Ford, Harry Harrison, Gary Darby, do that great show. Money. Let's talk Ole Miss. Batter up, swing. Let's talk some football or whatever's on your mind.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of a bitter pill with the baseball season the way it ended there, and so I think after the World Series is over, Ole Miss fans will start turning their attention to football. But right now, everybody's still into the baseball portal and what's going on there. But look, football pays the bills for everybody, so we'll talk a little bit of football. I think right now, all the freshmen reported there in late May. They've been in for a couple weeks now. The ones, you get some guys that graduate early that arrive there in December, but the majority of the freshman class is in. It's really hard for freshmen to produce on the field in this era, right? When you're having portal players with so much experience. I can remember when teams like Alabama, and it was kind of like a race. I remember Orgeron loved to say at Ole Miss, we got 18 freshmen playing. That was always a real sales pitch for incoming freshmen to talk about how many of your freshmen play. But let's be real, they're going to be mostly upperclassmen. But I think they really like the way that the portals have gelled on the team, not only from a physical standpoint, but from just meshing from a chemistry standpoint with the returning players. I mean, this is a lot of new. I mean, they've got 16 new starters out of 22. You can do the math there on this year's team. So it's more turnover than even with Lane that goes portal heavy every year. This is more turnover than usual for him, but they think they really hit on their evaluations with these transfer portal guys. They really love Austin Simmons, the quarterback, leading the way there. But look, it's going to come down to those key moments of with Simmons. What kind of plays does he make with 2 minutes left, and you're tied or down three, up three
Yeah.
with the ball, right? At Georgia, those are the moments that will define the season when it all comes down to it.
Yeah, I want to flip back, and Brendan's right. We want to talk baseball, and you mentioned it. Ole Miss been to 8 super regionals, I think, under Mike Bianco.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, your program's in great shape. Damn it, you want to win it. You won it all in 22. Your thoughts on right now? How
Well,
about that? Yeah,
I think the biggest thing is that everything comes down to roster construction and how much money you had to put that roster together. And Mississippi State made a big investment there, and O'Connor there from Virginia, and they've about quadrupled their NIL and I guess revenue sharing, what you're going to call it now, but what they spent on their roster last year, and Ole Miss has decided to do the same. I think they're both are going to be up there in the $4.5 million range next year, which is going to put them up there with anybody in the country. Now, maybe not the LSU's, with Mariucci Bats in Tennessee with Top Golf. Well, obviously with Tony's ownership there in Top Golf. So, but they're going to be as competitive as anybody in the country as far as being able to spend the money to put that roster together. So I think you're going to see both Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And Ole Miss had a fantastic year this year. They're just one hit away from probably making the World Series. But I think next year's roster, you're going to see much more talented. Same with Mississippi State. Both the Mississippi programs, I think, going forward these next couple of years, you're going to see a big rise in both programs.
All right, Yancy, let's tap into that brain of yours, into your noodle, because you're very smart. LSU and Arkansas still alive in the College World Series.
Yeah.
How about that? How about that? 19 Ks
Yeah.
Arkansas pitcher
Yeah.
yesterday, and a LSU game still not. They're going to crank up at 10 o'clock Central this morning. But your thoughts on Omaha? You know it well.
Yeah, I think right now it's really setting up for a Coastal LSU showdown. And I'm going to go with the surprise here. I'm going to have Coastal winning it all. They did it, I believe, about 6, 7 years ago. Really like the 1-2 punch they have on the mound. I don't think LSU has that 2 punch, right? I think they got that 1 punch on the mound, but I don't think they're quite as dynamic with the 1-2 punch on the mound. That's why I'm going to give the nudge there to LSU. Now, Arkansas, you cannot, uh, you cannot discount them. But man, when you lose that first game and you add 2 games, and Ole Miss went through that when they lost game one of the regional, right? It's 2 sets of 4 quads in the World Series. So you lose that first game, it adds 2 games to your regional. It's just really hard to overcome that.
It is. We saw the coach of Coastal Carolina telling people how to properly pronounce the name. Okay.
Well, yeah, and it's the coach of Coastal Carolina is going to be a multimillionaire after this year.
Yes.
I'll assure you that.
Yeah.
What a great team he's put together there, and Coastal is one of those schools. That's going to be the fun thing about revenue sharing now, right?
Yeah.
You get that $20.5 million that you can invest. Doesn't mean you have to, but if you want to be competitive in college athletics, you're going to have to invest that in your rosters. How do you decide to divvy that up, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what's going to be interesting how this falls, because I said this last year, the SEC in basketball better have fun being at the top of the mountain, because don't think these traditional basketball schools like Villanova and the Rhode Island and the programs without much of a football, UConn, they're going to be spending heavy on basketball,
Yeah.
while the SEC teams are going to be spending heavy on football.
Yeah.
But programs like Mississippi State, they decided they're still going to go the heaviest on football, but they're going to go heavier on baseball, probably double than what everybody else in the SEC. So that it gives the schools the flexibility to say, "Hey, at least we're going to be good at something. This is what we want to be good at."
Yeah. Well, RIP Roy D. Mercer. But if Roy D. Mercer were alive and he'd have been at that press conference about how to pronounce Coastal Carolina, by God, it's the Coastal Carolina Chandeliers. That's who it is. I tell you, by God, my wife Sharon Jean's got a big one right there in the lobby of our double wide out there. By God, but Coastal Carolina. I remember talking to Butch Thompson on this show going into that matchup. He said, they've won 21 straight games. And he talked about those three pitchers they got with really low ERAs.
Yeah.
They're just a good team. I mean, it ain't luck.
No, no. I mean,
yeah.
you got it's just there's I mean there's you have your exceptions, but you have to have that 1-2 punch, right, with
Yeah.
the third reliable arm that
Yes.
can get you out of situations. But you got to have that 1-2 punch, and they've got it. Again, I don't think LSU has that two punch. I think they got a really solid two, but not a punch. He's not an ace, and I think Carolina's got two aces, arguably maybe even three. So that's why I'm going to tilt to them. They're well constructed. It's going to be a hell of a week or the next 10 days to watch. And look, Arkansas is probably, honestly, the most talented team from top to bottom. But
Yeah.
again, when you lose that first game and you got to pay two extra games to get out of your quad, it gets hairy.
Yeah. It's just look, one of our guests last week made a great point, a lot of takeaways. But he said 1 through 4, I like LSU's pitchers better. 5 through 10, 1 through 10, you go with Arkansas. Hey, check out that hat. I'm wearing one of these good looking lids here from Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company out there on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. So get you one of these hats, man. They only got 100 of them and they're going fast. Yancy, when you look at LSU and Arkansas, UCLA, and Coastal Carolina, we got 6 different conferences being represented in the College World Series in Omaha. So it's big. And then you look at a program like Ole Miss, which has a waiting list of season ticket buyers. They're really building something special. Mike Bianco's a young guy. Remember they had the shovels out. They had the ladies singing funeral dirges at his graveside, and then he ups and wins the national championship as the last team selected. Ain't that
Yep.
America? Isn't that the American way? Horatio Alger. I mean, come on. You can't
He's the
get
cat. He's
better
the
than
cat
that.
with 9 lives.
That's right.
I mean,
I love
we're
cats. Still
talking,
mice and
we're
rats.
talking about year 25, and I look, don't be surprised. They already had him out the door at year about what 20, and now we're at 25. Don't be shocked if one day down the road we're talking about this is the 40th year he's at Ole Miss. It
Yeah.
it very well could happen. I really like they've gotten off to a bang up job in the portal so far and picked up two dynamic pitchers, one really power outfielder. I think again, and there's nothing like your in-state rival to kind of give a foot in your booty and say, "Hey, let's go," or you're going to get left behind. And states decided to make a big investment into their baseball program, and Ole Miss certainly is not going to want them to outdo them.
No. And I was talking to Dean Wingo last night, who commutes from Starkville to Memphis every week, and talking about that big investment, what they did in baseball. I mean, you get the pitching coach from Wake Forest too. That's huge. I'll say hello to Robert Jones, R&L Transportation, Hot Shot Trucking in Truman, Arkansas. Big Notre Dame fan from Indiana, lives down here in the South now. Thank you for watching. Go Irish. Yancy, all right, back to now, real quick, one more, and I'm going to go back to some Ole Miss football.
Okay.
Who do you think's going to win the whole thing? And it's a grind. You could be out there for 12 days in Omaha, and there's very little shade. There's no shade. There's very little wind. And remember those Westerns when they used to bury people, the Comanches or the Apache, they'd bury you in the sand in the desert up to your head. And then they would peel off your eyebrows and your eye, and your eyelashes or whatever men have, and you would just bake in the sun. Is that what happens in Omaha? Because
It is, man. It is a brutal heat out there. I don't know what it is about it, but Omaha just, they say dry heat is not as hot. I beg to
oh, come on.
differ. Yeah, I've learned that in Scottsdale one time when I was running without my shirt about 20 years ago, and I felt like the sun was piercing my skin. I was like, I thought this dry heat wasn't supposed to be as bad. No,
It's
that's not
not
true.
humid.
Yeah, yeah. No, again, I like Coastal. I like that 1-2 punch they have on the mound. I like the balance they have at the bottom of the lineup, and they're a great fielding team. So I just think they're the most well-rounded team. I think Arkansas is the most talented team. I think LSU is probably the second. You're going to see them. LSU probably have the second most high-end draft picks. But that doesn't always mean who's the best team, right? So
Yeah.
I still think it comes down to Coastal and LSU, unless Arkansas can do just something special here and get out of that losers bracket, which again, 5 games to get to the championship round is really, really tough.
All right, back to Ole Miss football. Hotty toddy. Suntarine Perkins. Did I pronounce
Yeah,
that correctly?
yeah,
Suntarine.
yeah. They call him
Lo-
Get Perkins.
yeah. What, 10 and a half sacks last year? Bunch of, or tackles. How many tackles for losses? Ole Miss the last few years, their defensive line. You really are the guy that gave me the great one. How many guys they trust? And we all know if you have 12, 13 guys you trust, you're in good shape. Last year, you said it was maybe 9. What's the number of defensive linemen? And by the way, uh, Al Golding, or Pete Golding, not to be confused with Al Goldman, the former head of technical market analysis at AG Edwards, a great man, smart man. Uh, but Pete Golding is proving that he can coach. And I think the time he spent with Nick Saban, he learned a lot. But man, he can coach. This is the time of year when you watch a lot of these inside the Ole Miss football program on the SEC network. Talk about him and the defense that he's got coming back. Not to mention Austin Simmons, who is 19, already graduated from college and working on a master's.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Pete Golding. He's a classic example why fans are not coaches or administrators, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Alabama was ready to
Quote of the
to run
show.
him out of town, and I mean, he's just one of the elite premier defensive coordinators in the country. The Bama fans could have not been more wrong about him. He's taken Lane to the next level. We've all known that what he can do offensively as a coach, but having Pete there, where now he can really balance his time on both sides of the ball, and Pete's also a hell of a recruiter on top of a coach. So he kind of brings that double dynamic sword to your team, where he can not only coach but recruit. We see a lot of great coaches that aren't very good recruiters, and a lot of great recruiters that aren't very good coaches. But he can do them both. I think that as far as relying on the defensive line, I think they've got 8, 9 guys. I think that 7 right now, they feel like they could go to war today. I think there's a couple more that they think that are going to be ready by the time SEC rolls around. That have got all the tools, just not quite the experience right now. But 7, if they had a lineup today, I think they think that number can grow to 8 to 9 by the time SEC plays along that defensive line.
All right, so you look at the SEC, and I'm holding here a copy of Lindy's Football Magazine. I think this is their 45th year of doing this. Okay, Lindy Davis, the folks there in Birmingham, they've got Texas 1, LSU 2, Bama 3, Georgia 4, Oklahoma 5, South Carolina 6, Florida 7, Ole Miss 8. So we'll break down those teams. What do you
South
think?
Carolina was what?
They've got South. I'm talking about in the conference, not nationally.
Okay, okay.
My apologies here. I'm not Ed McMahon. I'm not looking up on the
Okay, I
couch.
like their quarterback too, but that's 6.
Yeah,
That was.
yeah. My my
I
my
don't. I don't
my.
know what they were drinking that when they came out with that poll, but
Hey,
no,
yeah.
they might end up 6. Now, I mean,
That
don't sell sellers short. And
no.
I like South Carolina's head coach. I really do. I think
Yeah, me too.
I think they're going to be good this year, but top 6, I don't see that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
in the SEC wise,
yeah.
okay, they got
Yes.
Texas 1. Keep going. Who 2?
Well, Texas 1, LSU 2, and Bama 3. Those are your top three, and that's how they pick.
Well,
the
you got
conference.
You got Arch at quarterback there, who everybody projects to. He's not proven, but come on now, he's a Manning.
Yeah.
So you definitely got to put them at one. Who at two again?
LSU.
LSU. You got Nussmeier coming back up. The most accomplished quarterback in the SEC returning. Um, you know, Kelly is a guy that really proved his merit at both Cincinnati and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I don't doubt his coaching ability. I think that's a safe two pick. I could go with that.
Okay.
And then at Georgia 3,
Alabama 3.
Bama 3 ahead of
Yeah,
Georgia.
Alabama Crimson
Yeah,
Tide.
that's just off media stuff. But Georgia's got to be 3. I would actually I would have Texas 1, Georgia 2. I think LSU's too high there, even though I understand what they're thinking with the quarterback returning. Keep going.
Okay. Georgia 4, Oklahoma 5, and South Carolina 6. Keep in mind, those of you watching and listening, don't drive off the road and go crazy. This is
Yeah,
just within the conference. Yeah.
Oklahoma. I have no clue how they got them ahead of several other these other programs. That one is just an oddball pick there. That's grasping for straws and hoping you win the lotto.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, Yancy is
no,
yeah.
last year it was really kind of tiered. You had 3 or 4. There was another tier, and it'd be interesting to see if that plays out again this year. With Bama, you know, with him getting his offensive coordinator back and the
Yeah.
comfort that they have with each other, I think that's gonna be a big deal. But with Ty, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm fully invested that he did. He doesn't react well to pressure. I'm not. I'm not sold on him. I think in the I want to say preseason games, but
Yeah.
the non-conference games against the Slippery Rocks, I think he'll look like Heisman
Yeah.
material. I want to see what he does when he plays against the big boys.
Yeah. And always I usually look at the top 3 or 4 games you play against the best teams. And and speaking of momentum and all, I mean, Florida recruiting right now in football.
Yeah,
It's
Florida, Oklahoma ahead of Florida, South Carolina. Look, Florida is the most overlooked team in the country this year.
yeah.
They, I mean, I could put a real argument that Florida should be number 2.
Yeah. You could
Now
because
Texas,
yeah.
the Sark, his coaching, he's got a Manny. Manny's been. It's isn't like he's a true freshman. The guy's been, nurtured and tutored for 2 years, just like Simmons has for Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I understand that they're well rounded. They're a greased old machine. Georgia, they're going to be up there regardless of a new quarterback. Period. Those two, and then I would have Florida. I would have Florida third behind those two, even ahead of LSU. I really like the speed on Florida's defense. I love the way that team was coming together at the end of last year. And obviously, that quarterback's a dynamic quarterback that can make plays with his feet and his arm. I think Florida's the most overlooked team in the country.
Yeah, I got them winning 10 games this year. I had them winning 8 last year. People laughed at me. I was ridiculed. I was ostracized. I was told I was insane, crazy. But you know what? They won 4 of their last 5 games. DJ Lagway is the difference maker. You're right. And, you look here, they got Ole Miss 8, Auburn 9, Missouri 10, Tennessee 11, A&M 12, Arkansas.
Tennessee 11.
Yeah, in the conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's way too low.
Yeah, A&M 12, Arkansas 13, Vanderbilt 14, Kentucky 15, and Mississippi State 16. There's movement in the aisles here at Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. The sonic drive of the game. My ride home to Tupelo. It was an ugly one here tonight in Starkville. But Look,
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a
I'm
wild year.
fascinated with Auburn.
Yeah.
Freeze knows he has to get it done this year, but gosh dog it, he's still got to go in with another new quarterback, right?
Yeah.
That's tough when you're in that make or break year, and he probably is. To go in with another new quarterback. Now I know he's a highly transfer, guy from there from Oklahoma, and I know, I love the kid that they signed out of Mississippi, in high school. But let's be honest, he's going to need a little time. But
Yeah.
that's tough to have all that pressure with a new quarterback in the system. But I think, I mean, look, when the chips are down, phrases like Bianco, he's got with Cap at 9 lives.
Yeah.
Don't discount Auburn this season.
Yeah.
They'll
It's
be
going to
they'll
be.
be very fun to watch.
I think they will be, and I don't think he's not going to be fired unless they go 0-12. I mean, I just don't
Right,
see that happening.
right. Well, but
And
you know how the Auburn fan, and
I know
it
him.
does what he has going for them is Alabama, right? When they're winning those championships, it makes the Auburn fans do crazy things. So
Yeah, and
maybe Alabama taking a little step backwards will let them
yeah, and
have a little sanity.
it'll be a fun year. We got a couple of minutes, and we're about to have to wrap up. But I'll say this:
It really
I,
is. I mean, you're looking at 12 teams there that legitimately, you know, could win really big in my
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah, and
It,
Roman Harper talked last night about Tennessee. He goes, 7 wins maybe. He goes, he doesn't like the turnovers that Aguilar has, but you know what? If they'd had him there in the spring, instead of Nico stealing all the reps with the ones at quarterback, it'd be a different
yeah.
deal. This is why this portal crap has to be fixed. Yancy, all right, tell people how they can follow you, and I'm going to come back and say something about sponsors, and we'll be out of here. But awesome stuff. Again, thank you more than you know. And I'm looking forward to coming down there in the next week or two, going to the Tallahatchie Grill in Oxford. And they better have the gumbo.
They better have the gumbo for you
better
this
have that
time.
gumbo. I love gumbo.
Boy, do I do too. Just at Yancy Porter anywhere on social media. And then you can listen to us on your local Super Talk station there in the state of Mississippi or Dutch WHBQ in the state of Tennessee on Mondays from 6 to 7.
All righty. Hotty toddy. Mike Brennan says hello. Take care, man.
Have a blessed day.
You do too. God bless you. All right. They say something. I'm wearing this here hat. Brendan put that QR code up there on the screen. They got 100 of them in yesterday. These are this waxed canvas front with the patch. I think J.M. Huffman, the big feller, designed them out there. They're open Monday through Saturday, as they say in the South, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. All kind of cool stuff out there. 75% off rack out front. As it gets hotter, that stuff's disappearing. Filson luggage. Get in there and check out all this Filson luggage. They got STS, Duckhead, STS luggage for men and women. Just thousands of pairs of boots. By the way, the live in the boot room concert Saturday night, Brendan, 130 people in there on top of each other to hear the Park Hillbillies. It's a big time, really good band. Hey, so Hewlett and Dunn, get out there on the square. Filson, Barber, and I'll tell you something else. They got these short-alls. They're like overall shorts in camo, blue, and khaki for the ladies. And I got Audrey some rain boots yesterday. HewlettandDunn.com. They'll ship anywhere. Landers Ford. Saw Brad Bellamy last night at the Touchdown Club. Heck, man, call out there. Get on there. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. He wants to help you achieve your dream of getting a new car, truck, or SUV. They're open 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, every day of the week except Sunday. I talked to Don Kitchens yesterday. You talk about NIL, played football at Ole Miss. He lives the dream, okay? Touchdown Club in Memphis was fun last night. Also, winter timber, we talked about them earlier. Now's the time to be getting ready for deer season. If you ain't doing it now, it ain't going to happen. Come bow season, come deer season for muzzle loader, for all that. Get what you need from Winter Timber Outdoors. Athens, Alabama, trying to grow all over the footprint of the SEC. Store opens in Auburn in about 6 weeks. 13,000 square foot store on University Drive in Auburn. For executive producer Brendan Martin extraordinaire, great show today. Lively conversation. Got Anwar Richardson tomorrow from orangebloods.com talking Texas. Some more guests like Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Vince Ferrara, sports animal in Knoxville. Lot to cover. Watch the Buddy Martin show tonight. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people, make a difference, and do like Roman Harper. with his foundation. It's unbelievable the great stories happening. See you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.